Exactly 1 year before the German invasion of the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941, the Third Reich forced France's surrender on June 22, 1940, in the Compiègne Forest's historic railway carriage, the same site where Germany signed its humiliating 1918 armistice with the Entente powers, ending World War I. Of the undefeated major enemies, only Great Britain remained, prompting Berlin to prepare a landing operation for its defeat under Sea Lion. But British dominance at sea constantly postponed the start date. It was obvious the Royal Navy would sink landing craft and invasion ships. In this strategic impasse, German leadership sought an Eastern solution. At the July 31, 1940 Berghof meeting with generals, Hitler declared Russia's elimination would shatter Britain's hopes with America, as Britain's hope lies in Russia and the United States. If Russia drops out, America is lost for Britain, despite the 1939 Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Following the Soviet-Finnish War, 1939–40, Berlin rated Red Army capabilities low, believing 1937–1938 repressions and early 1930s arrests of about 3,000 Tsarist and Civil War veterans via the Spring case had decapitated it. Some generals urged delay as premature, but Hitler snapped. "The Red Army is headless, weakened as never before. This is my decision's main factor. We must fight before cadres regrow." Directive number 21 on December 18, 1940, approved Barbarossa, named for Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I, to defeat the Red Army via rapid tank wedges, panzer groups of tank, motorized infantry divisions under Kleist, 1st, Hopner, 4th, Guderian, 2nd, Hoth, 3rd. 3 army groups, north through Baltics to Leningrad, center via Minsk, Smolensk to Moscow, south to Kiev, Donbass, targeted Arkhangelsk, Volga, Astrakhan in 3 to 4 months, mustering 3.8 to 4.3 million troops, 4,000 tanks, 42,000 guns, 4,000 aircraft on an 1,800-mile front.
By early 1941, Wehrmacht peaked after Poland and France. Divisions at wartime strength, training blitzkrieg with panzer groups as main tools, independent operations exploiting breakthroughs, backed by motorized artillery, heaviest calibers on fast tractors, never-lagging tanks versus Red Army's farm tractors barely outpacing pedestrians. Panzer HQs reached Soviet border winter 1940 with officers and signals, tanks pre-operation deploying infantry sans tanks to mimic anti-landing barriers, fooling Soviet command. Soviet GRU miscalculations let Germans secretly shift 2 of 5 infantry echelons east by April. Golikov reported 120 to 126 divisions, each versus Britain and USSR borders. No attack imminent. Since 1934, intensifying 1939–41, Colonel Theodore Rohl's group logged 500 high-altitude flights, up to 12 kilometers beyond Soviet AA, for meticulous photography, blueprinting Luftwaffe airfield strikes for air supremacy. Soviet leaders noted buildup. April 25, Attaché Major General Vasily Tupikov reported Stalin no post-France demobilization, USSR next enemy in 1941. No stolen plans reached Stalin post-signature. Agent data contradicted. Analytics weak. Much Red Army inland on peacetime staffs. Border cover armies unable versus main assault, needing 2 to 3 weeks transport.
May 15th, Zhukov-Timoshenko's considerations on strategic deployment urged inland troops borderward. Stalin rejected, fearing German spies saw aggression. No illusions.
Army grew 1.5 to 5 million mid-rearmament and reform, forts 15 to 20% ready, most of 1/3 mechanized corps forming untrained sans equipment. May passed quietly, Mediterranean distant. Germans took Balkans and Crete. Stalin's no provocations seemed right, needing peace year. Early June, Germans moved tanks and motorized borderward. Soviets stalled via June 13 TASS, denying USSR-Germany war. Inviting talks, Berlin silent. Inland troops west ordered, but less than 1 week left, 3 scattered echelons to Dnieper. June 21 evening, embassy agent and border defectors reported readiness. Overnight, June 22, border defense ordered, but Kremlin added, no provocative actions, last time win. Early morning, Brandenburg 800 in Red Army uniforms first crossed, seizing bug bridges. Planes hit cities and aerodromes pre-ground, simultaneous let Soviets scramble. Moscow sunrise 3:45, bombers course, 4 o'clock bays opened, main strikes airfields and units, 4 to 5 raids destroyed many, spares mid-repair. Belarus, 700 planes day 1. Western Front Air Chief Kopets inspected via fighter, suicided.
At 4:15 ground, advanced Arctic Black Sea, 4.3 million, 4,000 tanks, 42,000 guns, border smoked or shelled, guards and first echelon rifles took hit, deeper 100 to 150 kilometers off. 4:30, Politburo met military, Stalin hoped provocation. 5 o'clock, Schulenburg's note to Molotov. Brest first hurdle, morning heavy artillery or air. 8-hour Hitler assault delay, surprise failed, garrison resisted days. Guderian's 2nd Panzer flanked Brest south or north over the Bug. Army Group Center hit Belostok salient. Golubev's 10th Army, sketching encirclement. Grodno barrage and armor. Mostovenko's 11th Mechanized T-34/KV met, but tungsten subcaliber pierced KV 200 meters, T-34 farther. Hof Vilnius 50 to 70 kilometers to intact Elitas Merkiny Niemen bridges. 4th Panzer's 56th motorized led Hoppner's 11th and 8th junction break 60 kilometers. Not smooth. 1st Panzer Tarange head-on. Soviet 51st Corps 152 mm barrage. Germans artillery anti-tank versus counterattack. 4 p.m. Most city. Soviets northeast by midnight. Gajdai bled 61st Infantry. Southwest Kirponos Kleist held tanks for infantry at unfinished Vladimir Volinsky, Strumilovo or Rava-Ruska forts. Front rear fire, armored caps. Sappers fire closed, blasted doors caps, then grenaded flamethrowered. Red Fury bought time. 87th Division, Alyabushev, plus tanks, shoved 298th 10 kilometers, blocked Vladimir Volinsky tanks, freed rear garrisons. 7:30 p.m. Mikushev's 41st Rifle plus 209th Artillery northwest Rava-Ruska hit 262nd flank, retreated them. Flanked 24th stuck at pillboxes to border. End-day Germans' operational space. Strongest army outpaced Soviet mobilization. 3 echelons mid-reform. June 22 outlined cauldrons, but showed tougher foe. Berlin path began.
By the start of July 1941, the situation on the Western strategic direction was dire. The primary armies of the Red Army's first strategic echelon had been encircled and crushed in the Bialystok and Minsk pockets. The mobile forces of Army Group Center reached the western Dwina River near Vitebsk and the Dnieper River near Orsha and Mogilev. Within Hitler's staff, or Stavka, the plan for the next phase of the campaign, a swift thrust toward Moscow, was being finalized. The Wehrmacht General Staff intended the main strike to continue, as before, along the Moscow axis. This new offensive aimed to use Army Group Center to slice through the Soviet defenses, encircle and destroy the Soviet groupings near Nevel, Smolensk, and Mogilev, thereby creating optimal conditions for the final advance on the capital.
To crush the Western Front, which was now led by Defense Commissar Marshal Semyon K. Timoshenko, replacing the dismissed General Pavlov, Army Group Center deployed over 900 tanks, more than 6,000 artillery pieces and mortars, and over 1,000 combat aircraft. Intelligence data and the initial German successes fueled the German command's confidence that the Western Front lacked the reserves necessary to offer serious resistance on the path to Moscow. Nevertheless, new armies were rapidly being brought forward from the Soviet deep rear to replace the shattered formations. By the start of the Smolensk battle, which began on July 10, the Western Front comprised 7 armies, with 5 in the first echelon. The 4th and 16th Armies formed the second echelon.
On July 10, 1941, the Western Front's positions were hit by the powerful thrusts of 2 tank wedges from Army Group Center. General Hermann Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group struck at the right flank of the Soviet forces. Meanwhile, General Heinz Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group advanced on the left flank, swiftly forcing a crossing of the Dnieper, both south and north of Mogilev, meeting little resistance initially. The most vulnerable point in the Soviet defense proved to be the boundary between the 20th and 22nd Armies. On July 9th, Soviet units had abandoned Vitebsk, posing the critical threat of Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group breaking into the rear of the entire Western Front. To prevent this, Timoshenko decided on a combined arms counterattack, utilizing 3 armies and air support, aiming to retake Vitebsk and solidify the defense along the Dnieper River.
However, the hastily prepared counterattack failed. General Philippe A. Yershakov's 22nd Army, fighting near Polotsk, was split in 2 and could not launch an offensive. Defending a 280-kilometer-wide sector with just 6 divisions, it was outflanked, threatened with encirclement, and forced to retreat. General Ivan S. Konev's 19th Army, which had not fully concentrated, was unable to withstand the enemy's pressure and fell back to Smolensk. There, along with General Mikhail F. Lukin's 16th Army and General Pavel A. Kurochkin's 20th Army, it faced fighting in near-total encirclement. Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group capitalized on this, advancing north of Smolensk and reaching Yartsevo virtually unopposed by July 15. It secured the crucial Smolensk-Moscow highway and deeply outflanked the 16th and 19th Armies from the east. The situation developed differently on the southern flank. General Fyodor I. Kuznetsov's 21st Army launched an offensive toward Babroysk on July 13th, driving the Germans out of Rogachev and Zlobin. This strike was a complete surprise for the German command. Threatened on Guderian's right wing, Field Marshal Fyodor von Bock, commander of Army Group Center, was forced to commit the reserve 43rd Army Corps. Meanwhile, the situation at Smolensk deteriorated catastrophically. The 39th Motorized Corps fought its way to Rudnya and Demidov. The 47th Motorized Corps surged toward Smolensk via Krasny. Simultaneously, General Hans von Vietinghoff's 46th Motorized Corps encircled the city from the south. By the 5th day of the offensive, the enemy was at the gates of Smolensk.
On July 14th, Timoshenko ordered General Mikhail F. Lukin to organize the city's defense. However, the garrison's strength was only 6,000 men, mostly composed of militia, NKVD, and rare echelon units. On July 15th, the 7th Motorized Division from Guderian's group broke into Smolensk from the south, and by July 16th, the city was largely abandoned. On July 19th, Stalin issued an order severely criticizing the Western Front Command for its failure to organize a proper defense, and relieved Timoshenko of his command of the front, appointing Lieutenant General Andrei Yeremenko in his place. As a result of the deep penetration by the German panzer groups, 3 Soviet armies, 16th, 19th, and 20th, were trapped in the Smolensk area. Furthermore, Yelnya, Velikie Luki, and Yartsevo were lost. Near Mogilev, 6 rifle divisions of General Pyotr M. Filatov's 13th Army, not Remesov, were also surrounded.
Recognizing the crisis, the Stavka focused all efforts on halting the German advance, deploying 6 fresh all-arms armies into the Western Front's rear. Under Yeremenko, 5 Soviet operational groups launched concentrated counterattacks towards Smolensk, aiming to push the Germans back behind Orsha. On July 21, Soviet forces managed to retake Velikie Luki and prevent the encirclement of forces near Nevel. Parts of the encircled 22nd Army also managed to break out. However, Yeremenko's large-scale offensive operations were ultimately unsuccessful, hampered by dense German defenses, concentrated anti-tank artillery, and absolute enemy air superiority. Mogilev fell on July 26th after fierce fighting. The final decision to abandon Smolensk was made on July 28th. Though the surrounded Soviet troops fought with minimal resupply, they managed to prevent their complete annihilation. Notably, elements of the 16th and 20th Armies successfully established defensive positions on the opposite bank of the Dnieper. By the end of July, neither side had fully achieved its strategic goals. On July 30, Hitler ordered the exhausted Army Group Center to transition to a defensive posture. German motorized and tank divisions, having suffered heavy casualties around Smolensk, were in desperate need of replenishment.
Concerned by the slow progress of Army Groups South and North, tasked with capturing Kyiv and Leningrad, Hitler made the fateful decision to divert Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group south to reinforce Kleist's 1st Panzer Group in Ukraine, and Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group north to reinforce Army Group North. This move effectively suspended the main thrust toward Moscow. The battle, however, was not over. Unable to break Soviet resistance centrally, the Germans struck the flanks, August 3rd towards Roslav Gomel and August 25th towards Velikie Luki. The Red Army continued to launch unsuccessful offensives. On September 1st, 18 Soviet divisions from 4 armies of the Western Front attempted to breach the German defenses toward Smolensk, but advanced only a few kilometers. These costly, unsuccessful efforts continued until September 10th, when the Stavka finally issued a directive to switch to the defensive. The only notable success was achieved by General Konstantin I. Rakutin's 24th Army of the Reserve Front against the Elnya salient. It succeeded in liberating Elnya on September 6th, forcing a retreat of the German XX Army Corps. With this action, the Smolensk battle as a strategic operation concluded. At the cost of immense losses, over 700,000 personnel with 480,000 irreparable, 1,348 tanks, 9,300 artillery pieces or mortars, and 903 aircraft, the Red Army had delayed the German advance on Moscow for nearly 3 months.
German losses exceeded 100,000 men. General Franz Helder, chief of the Army General Staff, noted that Russia, which we considered a colossus with feet of clay, has unexpectedly proved to be a strong opponent. It forced the previously victorious Wehrmacht to switch to strategic defense. The failure to achieve a quick victory at Smolensk also influenced Japan, leading Tokyo to abandon its plan to attack the Soviet Union on September 6, 1941. Conversely, the heavy casualties sustained by the Red Army significantly depleted its combat readiness, which negatively impacted subsequent operations and contributed to the devastating defeats near Vyazma and Bryansk in the autumn of 1941.
According to the ambitious Operation Barbarossa, launched on June 22, 1941, German forces anticipated capturing Moscow within the first 3 to 4 months, crushing the Soviet Union in a swift blitzkrieg campaign. By late September, Army Group Center, under Field Marshal von Bock, prepared Operation Typhoon, committing 1.8 million troops across 64 divisions, including 16 panzer and 6 motorized divisions, armed with 14,000 guns, 1,320 aircraft, and about 2,000 tanks. Facing them were 1.25 million Soviet soldiers in 83 divisions of the Western, Bryansk, and Reserve fronts, supported by roughly 1,000 tanks, 71 artillery regiments, 9 cavalry divisions, and scattered reserves. The German plan called for 3 powerful armored thrusts toward Bryansk, Vyazma, and Orel, to split Soviet defenses, encircle and annihilate major Red Army formations west of Vyazma and east of Bryansk, then envelop Moscow from north and south while frontal assaults captured the capital before winter.
Summer 1941 brought stunning German successes. Vast swaths of western USSR fell, including Smolensk by early August, positioning panzers perilously close to Moscow. Yet stubborn Soviet defenses at Smolensk tied down up to 20 Wehrmacht divisions, delaying the push. The German command innovated by secretly redeploying Colonel General Erich Hoepner's 4th Panzer Group from Leningrad, enabling history's first simultaneous operation of 3 panzer groups on one front. Typhoon erupted on September 30. Guderian's 2nd Panzer Army struck south near Bryansk, employing bypass tactics to infiltrate rear areas. By October 3rd, Orel fell, and Bryansk front forces under General Yeryomenko faced complete encirclement. Soviet High Command authorized breakout attempts, with some divisions escaping by October 16th, though many survivors scattered into guerrilla warfare, rejoining lines only in winter 1941-42. Exploiting the breach, Guderian's panzers surged toward Tula, prompting desperate Soviet responses. An airborne detachment seized the Orel-Mitsansk highway, clashing with advancing Germans. Colonel Mikhail Katukov's 4th Tank Brigade arrived with T-34s, orchestrating a devastating ambush at Mitsansk. Using roving guns tactics, mobile anti-tank artillery firing bursts then relocating, Katukov created illusions of impregnable lines, destroying 133 German vehicles per Soviet records. This bought vital time to fortify Tula, repelling Guderian's direct assaults.
Simultaneously, Army Group Center hammered the reserve and western fronts near Roslav and Dukhovshchina. Within 2 days, German tank wedges completed the Vyazma encirclement, trapping 5 Soviet armies, 2/3 of Western direction forces. By October 10, Germans pressed to Kalinin, captured October 17, and Mozhaisk, abandoned days later. Stalin summoned General Georgy Zhukov from Leningrad. Assessing the front, Zhukov declared defenses collapsed, all roads to Moscow open. He recalled post-war, "When asked what stands out most from the war, I always say the Battle of Moscow. There the fate of Russia was decided." Zhukov rallied Moscow's remnants, constructing the Mozhaisk line 120 kilometers west of the capital, with anti-tank ditches, hedgehogs, minefields, and dug-in T-34s as pillboxes. Order number 345, October 13, mandated shooting cowards and deserters on sight. Assault groups of T-34s and cavalry plugged gaps, holding for days until reserves arrived. Critically, Intelligence confirmed Japan's neutrality, allowing 30 fresh Siberian divisions, battle-hardened and winter-equipped, to deploy secretly via the Trans-Siberian Railway.
Mid-October intelligence had Germans anticipating victory, but Mojaisk line resistance proved ferocious. On Borodino Field, site of 1812's clash with Napoleon, Siberian 32nd Rifle Division under Colonel Polosin faced SS Das Reich led by Obergruppenführer Paul Hauser. Positional battles raged days. Hauser lost an eye. Nazi propagandist Paul Karel later wrote of Siberians, "They fought steadfastly, not an inch without fierce fighting. Hell blazed on earth." At Maloya Yaroslavets on the Ilinsky line, Podolsk cadets, armed with rifles, machine guns, scant supplies, held Germans for nearly 2 weeks, advancing foes just 300 meters. Flanking panzers met 85 mm anti-aircraft guns in direct fire, repurposed from Moscow's air defenses. Kalinin Front under Konev stalled 9th Army with night feints. Engine noise and fake radio traffic simulated offensives, pinning Germans. Encircled Vyazma-Bryansk units tied down Army Group Center through mid-October's critical days, as autumn Rasputitsa mud choked roads, though it hampered both sides equally.
By early November, fronts stabilized uneasily. The November 7th Red Square Parade, October Revolution Anniversary, held immense symbolic weight amid looming threat. Marshaled by Marshal Budyonny, Zhukov at command post, units marched directly to fronts, signaling unbreakable resolve. Less than a week later, frosts refroze ground, enabling off-road tank movement. 4th Panzer Group ordered, "Days of waiting over, we advance to smash Moscow's last defenses," with frontline divisions issued winter gear. Germans shifted from encirclement to direct breakthroughs. 3rd 4th Panzer Groups massed northwest near Kalinin-Volokolamsk, aiming for Lama River, Volga Reservoir crossings, Moscow-Volga Canal. Guderian 2nd targeted northeast via Tula through woods, limiting maneuver, but concentrating power. Volokolamsk's defenses cracked after brutal fights. Hopner and Heinhardt seized Klin, November 24th, Solnegorsk, 50 kilometers from Moscow. Rokossovsky's 16th Army, ordered to Istra River, held firm under Zhukov's no-retreat countermand, despite flanking threats. Late November ferocity peaked. Guderian enveloped Tula, threatening Kashira, a gateway to Moscow. Belov's 2nd Cavalry Corps, dismounted with artillery, halted panzers. Forward Germans observed Moscow via binoculars. November 30, engineers reached Himki, 8 kilometers out. Reinhardt hit Moscow-Volga Canal. Right flank took Krasnaya Polyana, 30 kilometers from center. Tula bypassed, Veniv seized, Kashira outskirts reached, but offensives exhausted. Soviet reserves deployed. Localized counterattacks struck November 27th near Kashira, 29th north of Moscow. December 5, 3 fronts unleashed full counteroffensive, hurling Wehrmacht 100 to 350 kilometers back. 3 days later, Hitler issued Directive 39, mandating Eastern Front defense. 4th Army Chief of Staff Günter Blumentritt reflected, "Turning point of our Eastern campaign. Hopes of knocking Russia out in 1941 collapsed." Battle of Moscow, September 30th, 1941 to April 20th, 1942, inflicted Wehrmacht's first major World War II defeat, involving over 3 million total combatants, nearly 1.5 million casualties. It shattered blitzkrieg myths and validated Soviet mastery of elastic defense, precision strikes, and reserves. Moscow's fall would have crippled USSR command. Instead, defenders preserved the state, boosting morale worldwide. Germans lost strategic initiative, dozens of commanders sacked. Panfilov's 136th Division exemplified heroism, halting tanks at Volokholamsk. This clash echoed 1812, proving invaders' winter peril, reshaping WWII's Eastern Front. The Battle of Moscow delivered decisive outcomes that reverberated globally. Soviet counteroffensives cleared Moscow, Tula, Kalinin, Ryazan regions entirely, and parts of Smolensk and Orel, pushing Germans 100 to 350 kilometers back. Hitler sacked dozens of top commanders for the failure, including von Bock. Red Army losses reached 1.8 million against Army Group Center's 500,000. Yet victory proved Wehrmacht beatable by bold offensives, its own weapon turned against it. Allies and neutrals recognized Soviet resilience. Domestic morale soared after 1941 retreats. Zhukov noted it buried Barbarossa entirely. Militarily, it ended blitzkrieg supremacy, forced German defense, and shifted initiative eastward, setting Stalingrad's stage. Heroism, from cadets to Siberians, embodied unyielding defense, ensuring USSR survival and WWII's course.